Have you ever wished you could just hit a reset button on your life? I mean a real, hard reset. Not just a New Year's resolution, but a complete wipe of the slate. This is the story of Jacob, a man who decided to do just that. In the most extreme way imaginable, he decided to kill his old self. Jacob, in his mid-30s, found himself staring into the bathroom mirror after yet another sleepless night. The reflection wasn't just tired, it was haunted. Haunted by a montage of failures playing on a loop in his mind. The flicker of a memory, his sister's wedding, an empty chair where he was supposed to be. Another flash, the look of betrayal in his fiancée's eyes, a promise shattered. The crushing weight of a memory, his best friend's business, now just a pile of rubble because of Jacob's recklessness. The man in the mirror was a stranger, a collection of disappointments and broken trusts. He couldn't live with that man anymore. So, he went to therapy, not seeking comfort, but a verdict. He sat across from his therapist and declared, with a chilling certainty, the Jacob everyone knows needs to die. I don't just want to change. I want a real funeral. This wasn't a metaphor, he was dead serious. Soon after, thick, cream-colored envelopes, the kind you'd expect for a wedding, started arriving in mailboxes, but the text inside was stark and somber. They were formal invitations to a funeral, the deceased, the man he used to be. Jacob was burying his past, and he wanted witnesses. The reactions were swift and brutal. His sister, Sarah, called him, her voice a mixture of fury and pain. A funeral? Are you kidding me? This is the most selfish, attention-seeking thing you have ever done. And that's saying something. A text message buzzed on his phone. It was from Lena, his ex-fiancée. Her words were like ice. Don't bother. I buried you years ago. His friend Marcus, the one whose business he'd ruined, was hesitant. After a long, heavy silence on the phone, he just sighed and said, Fine, Jacob, I'll be there. I guess I have to see this. Even his current girlfriend, Chloe, was deeply unsettled. She looked at him with confusion and hurt in her eyes. You're asking me to mourn a part of you that's still standing right in front of me, she said. You're asking me to mourn a living ghost. The day of the funeral arrived. The chapel was small, and yet it felt cavernous, half empty and echoing with unspoken resentments. An open, empty casket stood at the front, a bizarre centerpiece for this strange ceremony. Jacob stood beside it, dressed in a black suit, looking more like a grim host than a mourner. The air was thick with tension. Sarah was the first to give a eulogy. She walked to the podium, her hands trembling slightly, but her voice was steady and unforgiving. The Jacob I'm here to remember, she began, was a man of brilliant promise and consistent disappointment. He could light up a room with his ideas and then burn it to the ground with his actions. He was my brother, and he broke my heart more times than I can count. I hope this man truly rests in peace, because we, the living, need some peace from him. Next was Marcus. He didn't use the podium, he just stood from his seat, his gaze fixed on Jacob. You thought sorry was a magic word, man. You thought you could break things, say sorry, and everything would be fixed. But sorry doesn't rebuild a business, it doesn't pay back a life savings. I'm here today because you asked me to be. But forgiveness, that's not something you get from a eulogy. Then, an unexpected guest stood up, a woman Jacob hadn't seen in years. It was Rachel, a former colleague he had betrayed to get ahead on a project. She walked towards the front, her presence commanding the room's attention. I wasn't invited, she said, her voice clear and strong. I heard about this and I had to come. I came to see if the man who hurt me, who stole my work and my trust, could really die. I came to see if there was any truth in this, or if it was just another one of your elaborate performances. The words, each one a sharp-edged stone, hit Jacob. He didn't flinch, he didn't argue, he just absorbed them. This was the point. This was the reckoning. When they were all done, he stepped forward. One by one, he placed symbolic items into the empty casket. A deck of gambling cards, representing the risks he took with other people's lives. A shattered smartphone, for all the calls he ignored and lies he told. The failed business contract, now just a worthless piece of paper. With each item, he was letting go of a piece of his toxic past. Finally, with a deep breath that seemed to pull all the pain from the room, he reached for the casket lid. With a definitive, resonant finality, he closed it. But grand gestures don't magically fix reality. The immediate aftermath was brutal. As soon as the service ended, Sarah walked past him without a word, her face a mask of anger. Chloe pulled him aside outside the chapel. "I can't do this, Jacob," she said, her voice cracking. "I can't be with a ghost. I need someone who's actually here." She turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone on the cold pavement. The funeral was over, but Jacob had never felt more alone. The following weeks were a blur of crushing loneliness and gnawing doubt. He'd made this grand, theatrical move, and for what? Nothing had changed. The silence in his apartment was louder than ever. He had buried his past, but the present was just an empty void. Had it all been just another selfish spectacle? Then, a small crack of light appeared, a package arrived. Inside was his old childhood baseball mitt, worn and familiar. There was no note, but he knew it was from Sarah. It was a message without words, a fragile acknowledgement of a time before the disappointments, a hint that maybe, just maybe, the boy she once knew was still in there somewhere. Another surprise came in the form of an email. It was from Rachel, the colleague from the funeral. She wasn't offering forgiveness. She was offering a business partnership. "You understand failure," she wrote. "You understand how things can go wrong better than anyone I know. I think that knowledge is valuable. Let's build something right this time." This was the real beginning. Not the funeral, but the quiet, difficult work that followed. Jacob started building a new life, not on grand pronouncements, but on small, consistent, honest actions. He poured his energy into his new venture with Rachel, focusing on ethical practices and transparency, the very things he had once disdained. 6 months later, Jacob was walking through a park when he saw a young couple arguing. The man was making grand, empty promises, his words a familiar echo of Jacob's own past. He recognized the patterns, the casual disregard, the smooth apologies. He saw the man he used to be, and for the first time, he felt a quiet sense of distance, not revulsion or guilt, but a peaceful separation. That evening, he had dinner with Sarah. It was cautious, fragile. They didn't talk about the funeral. They talked about baseball, about a funny movie they saw as kids. It was a small step, but it was on solid ground. The reconciliation was just beginning, but it was real. As he continued to work with Rachel, their business began to grow, built from the ashes of his past failures. He found a new kind of success, one that wasn't about personal gain, but about creating value and rebuilding trust. Looking back, Jacob realized the funeral didn't magically grant him a new life. It didn't wash away his sins or erase the pain he had caused. What it did was create a space. It drew a line in the sand, a moment so definitive that he could no longer retreat into the comfortable lies of his old self. He had to move forward. The funeral wasn't the resurrection. It was the act of clearing the tomb. The ghost was gone, and the living, finally, had begun. What do you think? Could you ever do something so drastic to change your life? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, be sure to like and subscribe for more content just like this. See you next time.